Hello everybody and welcome to the GameGuru MAX live broadcast number 75, and we are still doing these things. So thank you for joining me on a Wednesday 4 PM GMT or just shortly after. And before I get into what it is I'm going to talk about today and what the general format is, just want to make sure that everybody can hear me fine. So I'm going to look at my chat window, which is off to the side. You can't see it but I can. Just want to make sure that everyone can hear me okay. Anyone with a cut and paste ready to tell me that you can hear me fine? I've noticed a little bit of lag and some weird false starts with the broadcasting software, etc. So I might have to wait a bit longer. Got it from... Oh yeah, great, wonderful, you can hear me, wonderful. So I'm going to show you some things today, some things that you may have glimpsed at, but I'm going to show you a little bit more and some more improvements. Now, before I get started on that, if you are lucky enough to join us live, you get to ask me a question, and I'll answer some of those questions towards the end, and the rest of the questions I will answer in the GameGuru forums, along with a recording of this broadcast. If you can pop a little question mark at the end of your sentence, it allows me to skim through the live chat a little quicker, get to your questions quicker, and hopefully get more answers in. Last week, we actually almost managed to answer every single question during the live chat. So in the GameGuru forums, the questions I couldn't get to amounted to one. So let's see if we can do that again. I can already see lots of questions flooding in, so it's probably not going to happen twice. Lightning will not strike twice. Anyway, let me get on and show you the software. So I want to show you a couple of things today. The main thing is the further improvements to our animal logic. Get through the welcome screen. This is my little test project area, going to test level. One of the most recent improvements, one that anyone who's got a pre-order will be able to get this Friday, is what I'm calling slope or tilt logic for animals. So let me just run this little rat's maze. I've had to build walls to stop the rat running off, but as you can see, what's actually happening here is the rat has an animation, which is basically just, you know, running and idle and eating and things like that. But it never tilted, you know, the nose was always pointing forwards. So what you actually get now is he'll actually point downwards when he's going down a slope and up when he's going up a slope. And so you get the idea of how that works. It'll work for ramps, staircases, hills, all that kind of thing. So unlike a character that can sort of balance on two legs and always stay upright, things like foxes and small mammals and things, they kind of need to follow the slope because they're on four legs. So speaking of four-legged creatures, let me load in a level that I spent a little bit more time on. This was just a quick test to sort of, I always needed the rat to follow a slope, so I didn't give the rat a choice. All the level was slope. Let me just run this. I've put in some different animals. We're still doing little tweaks, things like speed and, you know, maybe how quickly they change direction and stuff, but generally, you have a situation where animals will just mind their own business, sniff about, walk. As soon as the player gets in, right, they all run off. And same with smaller mammals, such as rabbits, if they're still here. Yeah, they all run off. So you can see there's a rabbit there, just on the side of the hill. There's also some skunks over there. You see his tail. It's very hard to hide when you get a tail that big. There's another skunk. He's now running off. And I think I put some more skunks up here. Yeah, there he is, wandering around, and there's a little zombie. So effectively, as you can see, they walk, they idle, they run. Some will like eat, and we're going to continue to improve that logic. But the general idea with these animals, why are you working on animals? Why are you not working on combat AI, Lee? What's going on? Well, we wanted, when you select a biome like Antarctic or desert or rainforest or open plains, you know, it's great having trees and grasses and skies and landscapes and water and all the rest of it, but if it was devoid of life, it just wouldn't feel like a true biome, which is why we put some emphasis on making sure that we could populate our biomes with life. So we're starting with mammals. You might already have seen in Discord some glimpses of fish. And we're also going to add birds, and we're looking at even things like snakes. So all the different kinds of creatures you might find in a typical biome, we'll randomly seed them in the world. You don't have to place them one by one. Obviously you can add them down if you want, but generally go into an environment and it's real, it's alive. You can hear the birds in the trees, then you look up and you see a bird flying around or sitting on a branch. So that's one of the things I wanted to show you. So you'll get that in this Friday's build if you're a pre-order user. But the other thing I wanted to show you is a little gadget that we've actually added. Let me just show you this zombie. If I get close enough to him, he'll now detect me and he'll start lurching towards me. Now that lurch animation, our zombies have a number of animations, but up until now it's pretty difficult to give that choice to you. We actually kind of hacked it in the previous one. If you remember an early, you might never have found this, it's called chase modes. But now we've had a new gadget to dynamic lure gadgets. We've got sliders, we've got tick boxes, we've got text entries, etc. But now we've got a nice little drop down. So you can actually see, you can just choose by name the animation that you want this zombie to do. So we've got arms out kind of zombie, gammy hand zombie, bad back, which is the one you saw, a dash, and then a hunchback. So I'm going to do gammy hand because it's slow and I want to show you some other little features. So I've just set that and now we can rerun. I'm not going to dance through the forest looking animals this time. I'm going to straight up to the frozen spire thing. So let me just see, there's all the rabbits. I put them all here, but they instantly run off as soon as they smell a human. And there's a character, and you can see it's a different animation this time. I'm just going to hide around here a little bit, just so he has. Now you notice what else he's doing? Even though he's doing his animation, he's actually looking straight at me. Screw it, I know. So effectively, you can choose the animations by name with the gadget. That's a drop down, and anyone who wants to write their own behaviours and scripts will have access to that gadget. And all they would need to do is tie them up with the animations, and then you get quite a lot of control. But that's generally the idea. We want to give you that control, and not you having to script. You can just select things, simply press test level, and then get that. So I won't have him attack me. This is a Christmas theme, so you can see he's got a hat, but we'll keep the violence out of it for this broadcast. One last thing I want to show, a little bit more upbeat, less about zombies. Let me just get rid of this guy. You may have noticed in the newsletter that we provided a nice bonus to everybody that's been amazing and pre-ordered whilst we was working on GameGuru MAX. And so we felt we wanted to give you something a little extra, something that you will not get if you just show up right at the end and just buy the finished product. So something just for our lovely pre-order users, which is some new character parts and some new characters. So they're called Futuristic Guy, Futuristic Girl. Kept the naming simple. We'll let you decide what you want to call. I'm just going to face them that way because I've done a little rehearse and they face the light better in that direction. And I got rid of the zombie, so I'm not getting attacked all the time. Oh, actually, speaking of getting attacked all the time, when you drop in characters, generally, they are enemies. And I don't want them running around hurting me. So what I can do is go into character settings, set both of them to neutral. Difference between neutral and allies. Allies will be your friend and follow you around and help you in your combat situations. Neutrals don't care. They are not affiliated with any faction. But if you shoot them, then they become your enemy. So that's the difference between allies and neutrals. Let's go back up my little path through the skunk den, and there's our characters, no zombie to worry about. Just to give you a bit of an up close as to what these people look like. So we've got a battle scarred, armoured, futuristic girl, and those lights are emissive, so if she's in a dark room, those will glow. And you've got a guy who's got a nice, very super shiny and scarred metal faceplate, so that really shows off environmental mapping quite well. You can see it's reflecting this big toe here, and you will actually get that after release. We'll have it as an installer, but all the way up to on through the alphas and etc. we're actually going to include it directly into your installer, because some of you may have noticed that you run the installer, then you run the update and all your bonus material disappeared. So we've fixed that, so you're always going to have the bonus material right off the bat if you're a pre-order user. So I'm really pleased with those. Those are looking really good. Obviously, you can start thinking like racing now. Like, wait a minute, whoa, can we have more different futuristic weapons? Can we have futuristic buildings? All that to come. All that to come. As I said, we're keeping very strict on our priorities to make sure that we've got great biomes, great logic for animals, great logic for enemies and allies, etc. And we're continuing to work on that. So that's what I wanted to show today. Just checking the clock. I'm doing pretty well, 12 minutes in. Always try to hit that 11-minute mark, but I'm just 1 minute out. Maybe that was just 30 seconds, a little bit more waffle. And now I'm going to look at the chat, see if there's any worthy questions, Christmas related or Max related, or completely unrelated. So we'll start at the top, look for some question marks. We'll have a couple of minutes to answer these, and as I said, the rest we'll put in the GameGuru forums later on. And season's greetings to you too. Thank you very much. Okay, first question is early question from Super Confident Man. While we wait for RPG mode, is it feasible to use the visual logic system to create an RPG? Of course it is. I mean, we haven't sabotaged the software so you can't do RPG. It's just you're going to have to do it yourself. You're going to have to go into script, you're going to have to write your own logic, import your own models, etc. When we say RPG mode, what I mean is we're going to provide some additional assets. We're going to provide the logic and the behaviors to make making RPGs super easy for a lot of people. But yeah, if you've got the skills, go right ahead. Start using the visual logic system, creating behaviors and scripts, you know, and post them on Discord, post them on the forums, impress us. You know, we're in this together, and if you've got some great ideas and can demonstrate it, we might ask you, can we use that idea? Because that's a really good idea, and it ends up in our RPG mode. So absolutely, go ahead. Here's a question from Fallen Ninja. Once the engine releases, will we get more of these update live streams? Even at a reduced rate, these updates are awesome. Updates as in reference to me talking, which is the Wednesdays one, or the updates which are the Friday releases. I'm pleased to say, so far the plan is both. And it will just transition from Lee talking about in-progress development to what we've been working on and what you're going to get in the next update. The cascades may not be weekly once released. They might be bi-weekly, etc. Or it might be on an as-needed basis. But yeah, certainly I've been enjoying revealing what we're doing. I'd like to get more into showing you how to use the software in different ways. So rather than trying to reveal something new, maybe going deeper into something that already exists, but maybe not many people know about or aren't using to its fullest potential. But yeah, I'm getting a kick out of it. Really want to do that in 2022, so don't worry about that. The plan is to continue. Another question mark. La 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 la. Here's one from Sleeping Warrior. Will NVIDIA Ansel technology be integrated to GameGuru MAX? There are no plans to add NVIDIA's Ansel technology into GameGuru MAX. We have quite a nice list to be getting on with without adding new technologies. Longer term, there's lots of really cool GPU-based technologies we'd like to play around with, but we're always going to protect that minimum spec, so a lot of people will be able to install and use GameGuru MAX without needing a super powerful monster rig. And all these latest, newest, shiniest technologies usually require a beefy hundreds and hundreds of pounds graphics card. And we want to make sure that we're not like limiting ourselves to just the high end. Another question, this is from Martin Oliver. Will we get other full screen shaders like distance blur and motion blur? No plans to add distance or motion blur for the March release. Although I can say, having done a little bit of an experiment, that it is relatively simple to switch on depth of field. And it might be really good, or it might be really bad. But yeah, it's not planned for the March one. But let's resume that in the forums later on, just so it doesn't descend into technical questions. Question from Nomad Soul. Will you be doing any coding over Christmas and New Year? Yeah, I basically cancelled my Christmas in order to, as a way, you know, because we pushed the deadline into March, I felt the very least I could do is to take all the days available and continue to work on Max to make it great. That way, that when we are ready to release in March, it's a great product. So, and I'm happy to do it. This is what I was born to do. I'm still getting the kick out of coding, and I'll be here. I'm taking a couple of days off. It's obviously Christmas Day and a few others, but generally I'll be here at the keyboard doing great things, or thinking I'm doing great things. But yeah, I'll have a few days off. That's all I'll need, really. Okay, so Synchro62 asks, by request, is there any reason why we cannot has a completely empty level for indoor work, no terrains, etc? Well, you can do that. If you just go into your storyboard and click new level, and then when the terrain generator pops up, just click empty and then generate new terrain, and it will drop you into a completely blank level, and you can then save and load that super quick, because there isn't really anything there, which takes a long time to save or load. So that's how I currently do it to do my tests. But if you mean, is there even quicker way, then no. But yeah, certainly make some suggestions as to how you think that might look. I've thought of like a sandbox idea, but I don't really see how it can fit in nicely and elegantly into the current design. So here's another question. This is from Matthew Clark. Is there a configuration file to set the default install directory so I don't have to adjust it every time I open it as I run the installer from an external SSD? Yeah, in the settings there is, we default it to a documents folder. GameGuru MAX apps documents folder, but yeah, you can change that to one of your choice, and then all of your files will stay there. Even when you update, it will remember that and stay in that folder. So you can actually do that. If you mean something else, please post and clarify that question in the GameGuru forum, and I'm happy to answer with some more details. Here's a question from Turn, or Tom. Turn, is it Turn? Yes, it's Turn. How do we snap objects like walls or fences together, please? We have a grid mode. I usually don't go back to the screen, but I'm going to do this just for your benefit. If I go to Add, Showcase, pick a crate, as you know, this looks like that, but we now have some really cool modes like drop down, angle, so now it angles like this. But what you probably didn't know, in addition to that, is underneath here you've got grid, enable grid mode, snap, and then what you can do is actually snap your object to that. So not only is it following the terrain, it's now actually snapping to the dimensions of the object as well. So check out this one, grid and alignment settings, enable it and go to snap mode. And that's how you can actually do that. Okay, looking at the clock, burning towards the 20-minute mark. So, I don't know. As it's Christmas, shall I extend it just a little bit longer? I know some people have been wanting more time on the Q&A. I'm happy to do that. Okay, so let's find another question, because it looks like there are quite a lot of questions, so thank you very much. This is one from Lustanzian Mapping. Why he can't start the engine with water only? Who are we talking about? It would make very little sense just to have water, because there'd be nothing to really add your objects onto. You can't have them just floating around on the water. And water is not going to be a major feature of the merch release. You certainly have water as visual decoration and borders and barriers to your gameplay area. But to start a level with just water, there's no gameplay though. You'd need some land on which to stand with water surrounding you. But you can certainly do that by doing an empty level, raising the water level above that ground plane, and then using Sculpt to raise an island outside of that water. So it's just a couple of clicks, and it's pretty straightforward to do that. And I'm sure someone in the forums will be able to demonstrate it. Here's a question from Martin Oliver. What performance tweaks is still being planned? We're pretty happy with a lot of the performance now. Certainly some areas around loading and the speed at which you can actually get the software loaded, running and ready, and obviously some optimizations when you click test level. I'd like that to be a little bit faster, especially around things like physics, which has already made some improvements since last week, but I'll make a few more improvements. And of course the nav mesh generation, I do want that to be faster as well. And again, I can go into lots of technical details about what's being planned, but yes, there are more performance tweaks to be done, quite a few in fact, and a lot of them are going to be in January 2022. But more on that when we've done it. I'd rather show you what we've done rather than what we're planning to do. Here's a question from Matthew Clark. Also, switches won't even, though you were on the wrong side of the wall. Is there a way to fix? The switches won't work if you're on the wrong side of the wall. So the basic idea is you put a switch on a wall, you walk up to the switch, you interact with that switch, and the switch switches on and off. And that seems to work quite well for me. If you manage to find an issue where you think this is a weird way of doing it, then please post an issue in the issues board, and we will absolutely get to that. Make sure that all of the correct things you might do with the switch will actually make sense or in test level. Here's a question. When AI is improved, will it be possible to create a stealth type game where the AI needs to see the player etc? The AI already has a cone of sight for awareness. And in debug mode, you can actually see that cone as the enemies are patrolling. And so the enemy won't engage you until they actually see you within their cone of sight and their range. Then they'll have an element of delay where they might have seen something but might not, and then go back to their usual patrols. But if after that delay they see that the player is actually there, then they'll engage you and alert and go into attack mode and maybe tell their friends, and they come into attack mode as well. So you can kind of make a sort of a stealth game out of those mechanics. But if you mean like a full-on thief-esque sort of game, there aren't a lot of plans to do that in the shooter genre, but we may do a bit of a crossover when we do things like not necessarily puzzle, but certainly RPG with a stealthy element to it. But you know, if there's a couple of easy things that you think, look, if you just added that, we could do a whole kind of stealth game, then please make those suggestions. Either put them in the issues board or just talk about them in the forums. That's absolutely fine. Okay. Here's a question from Anthony Edwards. I'm 65 years old now. Will this software be finished before I die? I don't know. When do you plan to die? We will release in March 2022. So if you can hold out until then, you'll be able to play something really cool. So please stick around for the next 3 months. Looking at the clock, we are blasting past the 20-minute mark. We're at 23 now. And I am conscious that we don't want Lee to be waffling on for hours and hours. So I do actually have a hard reset at 30 minutes mark. So I will pick 2 questions from people who haven't asked a question before. And I will pick, this time, because it's Christmas, I'll pick 3 from someone who hasn't asked a question before. So scrolling down, there is a question mark here. Ding, ding, ding. This is from Cyberdelia PC Reviews and Stuff. So you guys are focusing on NPC assets right now instead of the engine bugs. No, we are not focusing on NPC assets right now. Oh, you mean things like animals? Sure, because that's a big feature of a terrain generator biome system, which with one click you can create a variety of environments that are realistic from the get-go. That's one of our big plus points for the GameGuru MAX. We're not ignoring the bugs, we are collecting them, categorizing them, assigning them priorities and who will be working on them. Majority of those bugs will be done in January. We're just finishing up what we call block functionality for the software through to the end of the year. And if it's any consolation, all the NPC logic that's being worked on isn't actually worked on by the core team. A very, very generous community member who's extremely good at programming in general and scripts in particular is actually doing all the mammals, fish and birds. So don't worry, nothing's being subtracted from our own core efforts in getting the product ready for March 2022. Who else hasn't asked me a question yet? So, sorry for those I'm having to skip. Looking for a new question answer asker. This is a new one. This is from Scalden Wolf. So I have to buy the same product again because you can't just remake your program. Yeah, this is it's been brought up a few times, thinking I bought GameGuru Classic, so why should I buy GameGuru MAX? I think you only have to put the 2 products side by side to realise this is a completely different product now. The iterations isn't just a slight improvement, it's a vastly different product, it's a practical rewrite. And I'm not really an advocate of I sell a product 10 years ago, and if I ever write another piece of software, I have to give those subsequent products away for free. We wouldn't be in this business for very long, and there would be no long experienced programmers, because everyone would think, well, there's no money to be made in this, I can't even buy bread and water, so I'm just going to go and become a gardener or something. But that's how the system works. We create one product and sell it, then we create another product and we sell that. That's basically the system. But we will continue to support GameGuru Classic, so if you do have GameGuru Classic and there are any issues that you have, please do post those as well onto the issues board. And we make updates 4 times a year, and we will continue to do that for GameGuru Classic to make sure that the product you've bought is maintained and you're not being stopped from creating games with any bugs that might pop up from time to time. But we've been very good over the last couple of quarters, and we can almost get the bug count down to 0 for each of the updates. So hopefully you're pretty happy with how we're performing on the GameGuru Classic side. And as I promised, a 3rd question from someone who's not asked a question before. And it's from Retro Game Bloke. He usually would ask a question before. Any chance of adding resolution choices in standalone? Yeah, I've been thinking about that myself at the moment, and for the longest time, in fact, for 7 years, GameGuru ran at the resolution of your desktop. And some people like really large 4K desktops, but when they're running their game, they want it to pop down to something like 1080p, so they can get that pixel shaded performance back. It's not even that difficult to do. It's just never really been on our plate to look at in any serious way. So if a few other people say, yeah, that's a really good idea and it's more important than some other things that we might be working on, but certainly put it onto the issues board and maybe flag it up, maybe even email me and say, look, this is the one I was talking about in the chat, and I'll take a closer look. If it's a really easy thing to do, I could be swayed, because what it will mean is you can get much faster game performance if you have that option within your standalone game. But yeah, let's watch this space and you'll find out soon enough if that feature actually make it into the March 2022 version. So thanks very much for all your kind attentions. I can see we're 28 minutes in, so I only have 2 minutes to say goodbye, which I have to do now. And I also want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. Thank you very much for sticking with us this year, and I hope you've been enjoying the internal dev builds and the progress that we've been showing. Hopefully you can see that the progress is getting there. It's starting to look really good. I'm getting a lot of things you can do in the software, and long may it continue into 2022. So I will be back next Wednesday, believe it or not, at 4 p.m. GMT. So if you'd like to join me then before 2022 starts officially, please do so. And until then, I shall say goodbye.